Hello, welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. Thank you so much for joining me for today's show. Today we continue on in Matthew chapter 16. But before we get into it, I hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone enjoyed praising the Lord this weekend and had some great time with family and got to refresh and recharge the battery a little bit. So here we are again. We're going to continue on in Matthew chapter 16, and we're going to look at verses 21 through 23 today. So again, Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 through 23 say, "From that time Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, 'God forbid, Lord, this shall never happen to you.' But he turned and said to Peter, 'Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not on the side of God, but of men.'" So imagine, a couple things first. Right at the beginning of verse 21, we see, "From that time, Jesus began to show." So Matthew's using this term, "from that time," to make a break here. He's making a break from a pronouncement about the kingdom of heaven to an announcement about his coming death and resurrection. So Matthew is making that clean break here in this chapter. So remember, today we have chapter and verses. When this was written, there was no such thing. It was just a one continuous book, if you will. So here Matthew was making a break. So that's why we have that terminology there. Now imagine that you're the disciples. So in the time of Jesus and the disciples, when you were a disciple of someone, you did everything with them. You ate with them. You slept in the same room with them. You went with them everywhere. The only time you made that private time was when you're bathing and going to the bathroom. That was about it. And here Jesus is telling his disciples, look, I have to go to Jerusalem. I have to die. I have to suffer these things. But on the third day, I'll rise again. This is his first prophecy, first of 3 in the Gospel of Matthew, about his death and resurrection. And the disciples are aghast. Remember, they had these preconceived notions of what the Messiah was going to be. The Messiah is going to be this great military leader, etc., etc., etc. In their mind, the Messiah should not suffer these things, or didn't have to suffer these things. And so Peter, as leader of the apostles, as we saw in Matthew chapter 16, 17, takes Jesus aside and says, "Lord, what are you talking about? This is not going to happen to you." And Jesus says, "No, Satan, get behind me." Like, whoa, imagine you're in Peter's shoes. Just a few moments ago, you just had this great blessing. Moments, who knows really the time period. But either way, you had this great blessing saying, on your confession, on you, I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. To behind me, Satan. This shows us a very good example, something that can still apply to us today. You see, Jesus got this blessing in Matthew 16, 17. You see, he was inspired by the Holy Spirit. He was inspired by the Father. But here we see his natural instincts, his natural inclinations. He objects to suffering, especially the suffering of the Messiah. You see, on his own, he wasn't able to see the spiritual necessity of what Jesus was going to do for sinners, what he was going to do for you and for I, but only through the help of the Holy Spirit. So in all things, we need to seek the guidance of the Holy Spirit. We need to seek that guidance out. See, Peter he didn't see the objective that Jesus had. He was evaluating the situation from a human perspective, not from the perspective of the Holy Spirit like he had in verses 16, 17, etc. You see, guys, Satan is always trying to trip us up. He's always trying some way to get us to take God out of the picture. He's always trying some way to get God out of the picture. And if we assent to this attitude where, I'm going to try to do this on my own first, that's what the devil wants. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes in perspective. I think this is a great lesson for us today. So thank you for joining me on this episode of the Daily Bible Podcast. Please join me again tomorrow, and thank you for joining me. God bless you. Have a great day.